Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. The White House has confirmed President Donald Trump remains open to resuming direct communication with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, seeking to reignite the momentum of the 2018 Singapore summit. The White House stated Trump is still receptive to letter exchanges, even after reports that North Korea rejected a recent personal message that sent through diplomatic backchannels. While Washington signals openness, tensions on the peninsula remain fluid. South Korea, under the new Lee Jae-myung administration, has paused anti-North Korea loudspeaker broadcasts, prompting a rare reciprocal silence from Pyongyang. But alongside this brief diplomatic window, North Korea continues to flex its military muscle, rapidly deploying a new 5,000-ton destroyer just 2 weeks after a failed launch. To unpack these latest developments and assess what lies ahead, we are joined online by Ambassador Joseph Detrani, former special envoy of the U.S. for the six-party talks. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
And also joining us is Pan Gil-ju, assistant professor at the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. Good to see you, Professor.
Good evening. Pleased to be here.
So let's start right away with Professor Ban. So North Korea state media said today that it succeeded in relaunching its new 5,000-ton destroyer named Kanggun just 15 days after it failed its initial launch. What significance does this have for North Korea's naval power and broader military strategy?
Well, it is quite surprising news to me that North Korea has successfully launched the second destroyer by erecting and moving it to the Naji shipyard in a very short amount of time. It was attainable under the total war-led integrated effort. If so, why did this effort matter to North Korea strategically? I would say that this was seen as vital to North Korea regarding the recently emerging outward-oriented strategy because of its multifunctional nature. These new destroyers allow North Korea to be better equipped with multifunctional capabilities. First, a maritime offensive around the NNL, Northern Limit Line. Second, a nuclear offensive. And finally, an overseas offensive. First, new destroyers serve as well-prepared platforms to neutralize the NNL. North Korea has sent its naval ships down the NNL in an effort to neutralize the line. Amid these provocations, sea battles have often occurred. But North Korea had to lose the battle with South Korea due to its old-fashioned ships. If new destroyers are deployed on the front line as planned, how to fight is expected to be significantly changed. Second, these platforms help North Korea be more offensive regarding its nuclear posture. Kim Jong-un stressed the nuclearization of the Navy, which means that tactical nuclear weapons are scheduled to be armed with the new ships. Finally, new big ships serve as key assets to achieve North Korea's proactive naval strategy. Kim Jong-un ordered the military to organize the Blue Water Operation Fleet. In this sense, when these destroyers are deployed on the front lines, North Korea will be able to dispatch those ships overseas for various purposes, such as combined maritime exercises and naval support to other theaters. What does that mean internationally? It means that North Korean ships will be able to make combined exercises with China and Russia. To top it up, it means that North Korea is armed with deployable assets to support China in a Taiwan contingency. In this regard, North Korea's destroyer program has an impact on not only the Korean peninsula, but also regional and international security.
What about Ambassador Detrani? Are you on the same page? How do you think North Korea's this naval modernization would affect the overall security in the Korean peninsula?
No, I think this is a very significant development, and I agree with the professor. This is Kim Jong-un saying they want a blue water navy and projecting power and talking about the ability to not only the Northern Limit Line, but to get out of territorial waters and to pose a threat, if you will, to regional powers, whether it's Japan or what have you, of launching cruise missiles, certainly tactical nuclear weapons also. So This is very significant. A blue water navy for North Korea would be a major plus for Kim Jong-un and the ability to project power and to potentially intimidate. And as the professor mentioned, to participate in joint exercises with China and Russia. So this is, I think, a very, very significant development on the part of Kim Jong-un and the DPRK.
Right, so these developments would definitely mean a lot in the whole region as well. Now, let's also turn to nuclear developments as well. Professor Bond, the IAEA has officially confirmed that North Korea is constructing a new nuclear facility in Yongbyon in North Pyongyang province, and it reportedly shows similarities to the Gangsan nuclear facility near Pyongyang. So if this third nuclear facility becomes actually operational, how do you think it will affect North Korea's nuclear productivity and the broader security landscape?
Obviously, the third nuclear facility is expected to help North Korea maximize the number of its nuclear weapons, which poses serious challenges to international security as well as security on the Korean Peninsula. In more detail, we need to take a look at the nuclear strategy that North Korea has recently adopted. As of right now, North Korea seeks an offensive nuclear strategy simply beyond a defensive posture. The inherent nature of nuclear weapons is supposed to be deterrence, which means a nuclear armed state is not expected to be attacked by an enemy. Likewise, until recently, nuclear powers have emphasized that their nuclear weapons have only defense purposes by adopting the no first use policy. This nature could be harmonized with the discourse of a nuclear taboo that nuclear weapons should not be used because they are absolute weapons scared enough to destroy civilizations. As opposed to this nature, first, North Korea has abandoned minimum deterrence, which is defense-oriented, and instead adopted a maximum nuclear posture. In September 2024, Kim Jong-un disclosed his nuclear ambition that its nuclear weapons should be maximized rather than possessing a minimum level of nuclear weapons by ordering to increase nuclear weapons exponentially. So the third nuclear facility shows that Kim Jong-un's order has been visualized in a fast tempo. Second, similar to Russia, North Korea has neutralized the nuclear taboo by adopting an offensive nuclear strategy, particularly through the 2022 Nuclear Force Policy Law. As of right now, North Korea retains an offensive nuclear posture that it can use nuclear weapons for military purpose. All in all, the third nuclear facility makes North Korea's nuclear posture more offensive.
And that's a very concerning point for many of us. So on a related note to that, North Korea has previously showcased its nuclear material production capabilities, releasing footage of Chairman Kim Jong-un inspecting the interior of what is presumed to be the Gangsan facility. Ambassador, what is the intention behind these public displays? Do you think North Korea is positioning itself to use this capacity as a bargain chip in future talks with the U.S. like what Iran did?
No, having dealt with North Korea on the issue of highly enriched uranium for a number of years, certainly during our negotiations in the six-party talks, North Korea is establishing itself as a nuclear weapon state. And North Korea's goal and ultimate ambition is to be accepted as a nuclear weapon state. So what Kim Jong-un is doing now is making it very clear to the international community, indeed to South Korea and the United States, they are a nuclear weapon state, and they're building more nuclear weapons, and they're building more nuclear weapons facilities for fissile material, highly enriched uranium. Like you mentioned the Gangsan, this would be the second highly enriched uranium facility at Yongbyon. So this is very, very significant because it's telling us this is not a negotiating tactic per se, although this is something on the table because we want complete and verifiable denuclearization. But we're speaking of the Korean Peninsula here very clearly. But this is also Kim Jong-un saying, we're not giving up on nuclear weapons. we're going to build more nuclear weapons. And we're going to do that. So accept us as a nuclear weapon state, get into arms control negotiations with us, and we can live peacefully together because it's a deterrent. We're never going to use these weapons. It's a deterrent. So, yeah, I think it's very significant. And I think Kim Jong-un is messaging to South Korea and the United States, certainly, that they're not going to give up their nuclear weapons and they're going to persist. That doesn't mean we should not continue to pursue complete and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That should continue to be our goal.
So North Korea seems to be continuing to reaffirm its stance as wanting to be acknowledged as a nuclear weapons state. That seems to be very clear. Now, as North Korea continues to, accelerate its nuclear development, attention is now turning to, South Korea's new administration, the Lee Jae-myung administration, its early approach to the issue. Now, on June 10th, President Lee used the term denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula during his phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping instead of former administration Yoon's phrase, which was North Korea's denuclearization. How should this shift in language be interpreted, Professor Ban?
To start with, we need to dig into the differences between the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and the denuclearization of North Korea from the diplomatic and security perspectives. The denuclearization of North Korea is the term to clarify who should be nuclearized, which is North Korea, obviously, in a situation where South Korea does not have any nuclear program, and furthermore, all American tactical nuclear weapons were withdrawn from the Korean Peninsula in 1991. To top it off, North Korea has taken advantage of the term denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula as part of the gray zone strategy in order for American strategic assets not to be deployed on the peninsula. Meanwhile, the new Iraq administration lays out the diplomatic formula, which is a future-oriented comprehensive strategic alliance with the United States, easing tension with North Korea, and neighborly friendship diplomacy with China. The re-emergence of a term denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula seems to take all these new approaches into consideration. When it comes to North Korea, the new administration appears to create the environment for inner Korean talks by reusing the term denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which North Korea prefers and has used for its own purpose. Second, the new administration seems to send a signal to China that Seoul will change its diplomatic posture with Beijing by using the term that Beijing uses. Third, the reuse of this term also seems to send a message to the United States in the sense that Washington has often used this term in order to press South Korea not to be denuclearized. In this sense, the re-emergence of this term seems to show that the new administration will not seek the option of its own nuclear armament. All in all, the change of the term hints at how the new administration will transform the diplomatic security policy.
So it definitely is a interesting distinction in terms of language. Now, as for the Lee administration's first moves on the North Korean regime, the government has halted anti-North Korea loudspeaker broadcasts for the first time in a year. And in response to this, North Korea also appears to have stopped its broadcasts targeting the South. Professor Ban, can this be interpreted as a positive reaction from the regime? And what implications could this easing of tensions have on future ties?
Well, since the new administration has just been launched, I will say that this is the transitional period of how both South Korea and North Korea are checking each other's intentions and responses. To put it another way, it is the period of psychological warfare and strategic competition between the two amid an effort to ease tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Meanwhile, North Korea seems to positively respond to the new Rock administration's changing posture in the sense that Pyongyang halted anti-North Korea loudspeaker broadcast, as you noted earlier. So the next question should be oriented to how sustainable the efforts to ease tensions are reciprocally. In this sense, the next phase should be made timely. One of the options for the next phase would be the resume of hotlines between the two, followed by working level in inter-Korean talks. In addition to this effort to ease tensions, the key nature which allow tension to grow should be paid attention to. It is North Korea's nuclear program which poses its existential threat. So the efforts to ease tensions should be made simultaneously with efforts to functional deterrence and international coordination for denuclearizing North Korea. To that end, the new administration should make an effort to not only talk to North Korea, but also step up coordination with an ally, security partner, and like-minded countries. In a nutshell, the efforts to vitalize Korean relations are needed, but at the same time, those efforts should not be made by sacrificing deterrent capabilities, alliance, and international coordination.
So we should always keep deterrence in mind, especially even though we want to pursue dialogue again with North Korea. Now, let's circle back to Washington-Pyongyang ties. North Korea's focused media has reported that Pyongyang rejected a personal letter from U.S. President Donald Trump addressed to, of course, Chairman Kim. The White House has not denied this report. Ambassador, what might be North Korea's intention in rejecting the letter, and how do you assess the prospects for the resumption of the dialogue?
So let me go back to your first question to the professor about denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. I mean, this is language we used in the joint statement of the six-party talks on September 19, 2005. And this is the language we used in Singapore. You cited Singapore summit. This is the language we use because this is comprehensive language, and it meets Kim Jong-un, it meets North Korea's needs. We're talking about the Korean Peninsula, denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And I think that is the correct terminology. So I applaud Lee Jae-myung using that terminology, because that is accurate terminology that we've used since 2005, right through the Singapore summit in 2018. Look, you mentioned the letter. I've dealt with the New York Channel. That's sort of what some of the reports are, that the New York Channel would not accept a letter from President Donald Trump. Let me just say very clearly, I personally think, my personal view, is Kim Jong-un would accept a letter from President Donald Trump. They have a very special relationship. And there are many ways of getting that letter to Kim Jong-un, not necessarily through the New York Channel, because let's be very candid about it. The New York Channel is taking orders, marching orders from Pyongyang. And if they're told to stand down on dialoguing with the United States, they will stand down. And I think that's what's happening now. But there are other ways of getting a letter to Kim Jong-un, certainly a letter from the President of the United States, who has this relationship with Kim Jong-un. So yeah, I think the media has sort of gone a bit askew with Kim Jong-un refusing to accept a letter from President Donald Trump. I think he would be very receptive to a letter from President Donald Trump.
Well, lastly, we go to our final question as the U.S. Leaves door open for potential resumption of the letter diplomacy with North Korea. President Lee Jae-myung is set to attend the G7 summit, of course, starting June 15th, and this comes amid concerns of South Korea being sidelined. What kind of messaging and cooperation should be prioritized in terms of trilateral security cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, Professor Ban?
Well, before going for a deep dive, we need to take a look at where the trilateral cooperation is as of right now. The trilateral architecture between South Korea, the United States, and Japan has been formalized through the 2023 Camp David summit. What happened was that all the leaders of the three countries who were there at Camp David have left their positions. With this insight in mind, first of all, new three leaders need to gather together with an opportunity of the G7 summit and need to reconfirm this trilateral cooperation. Second, the inherent purpose of the trilateral coordination should be clarified. I would say that it is aimed at the two axes, countering North Korea's nuclear weapons and maintaining Indo-Pacific stability. When it comes to North Korea, the three leaders need to reconfirm their coherent policy of seeking a denuclearized North Korea. regarding the coordination of the Indo-Pacific, they need to policy how to achieve this objective technically in a situation where Trump administration has a different idea of what the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy should focus on from the Biden administration. In short, the Trump administration is eager to narrow down agendas on the Indo-Pacific, which used to include a wide range of items such as law politics, and then put more emphasis on countering China. Meanwhile, this posture needs to be coordinated with South Korea and Japan early enough, particularly in a situation where South Korea needs both security diplomacy and inclusive diplomacy with non-like-minded countries such as China. I would say that how much they are able to step up the Indo-Pacific cooperation is linked to how they are able to tackle North Korea's nuclear programs. That explains why the Indo-Pacific matters to South Korea's security as well. In this sense, it is not an easy task, but an important puzzle to be addressed in a timely manner.
So it's certainly a very critical moment, and the G7 platform could be a good opportunity for South Korea to reinforce its relevance in regional security discussions as well, and we will be closely monitoring the situation. But we'll have to end our discussion here at this point. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights tonight, Ambassador Detrani and Professor Ban. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks for having me.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.